I'm the type of nigga stand on business, nigga. One man arm again.
Hello, I'm Joe, and the Predator sequels are actually pretty good. Last year, Prey was released to Hulu, and it absolutely banged. The script was tight, the action was great, Amber Midthunder came through with a commanding performance, and Dan Trachtenberg once again showcased that he is quietly one of the best genre filmmakers working today. Many praise Prey as the first great Predator movie since the original, which I agree with. It is the first great Predator sequel, but it's not the first good one. In fact, I think the only bad mainline Predator sequel is 2018's The Predator. Listen, I'm a big Shane Black guy. Lethal Weapon, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3, The Frickin' Nice Guys. The man can make a banger. But unfortunately, The Predator was not it. I don't think it was a terrible movie, it just was one that only worked in fits and starts. I mean, there were some good performances, specifically Sterling K. Brown.
Fuck that nigga.
But overall, it just didn't quite scratch the itch that anyone was looking for, and it kind of just fell into the franchise trap most reboots of the 2010s fell into. Now, Predator 2? Predators? That's an entirely different story. Today, we're going to take a look back at two sequels that I don't think have been given their proper due. And as always, if you're digging the channel, please leave a like, a comment, and give us a subscribe. I would love to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And if you're digging the Project Wonder content, please check out the TikTok and Substack. So with that, is real Danny Glover hours, y'all. So Predator 2 has an odd reputation, like most movies of this era, with the 2 at the end of the title. I mean, Predator was an instant classic. You got John McTiernan, one of the greatest action directors to ever do the dang thing, just deftly melding sci-fi, action, and horror into this thrilling cacophony. Not to mention, it's anchored with some of the biggest action heavyweights of the era. The thing about Predator, though, similar to Exorcist, watch that video if you haven't, is that Predator didn't really set itself up for a sequel. It's a fairly self-contained story, and if the sequel was just Arnold goes to another jungle and fights another Predator, that would just feel really lazy and kind of boring. Part of what made Predator so effective is that it's such a grounded take on the slasher/alien film. So instead of just being a beat-for-beat repeat, Predator 2 opts to follow a whole new protagonist and a whole new location, and further fleshes out the lore of the Predator. My buddy Zipper jokes that Predator 2 feels like such an elevator pitch movie, like it just really came down to someone going like, instead of the jungle, the Predator's in a concrete jungle. And executives at Fox were just like, fuck yeah, let's do it! And like, honestly, that's the gist of Predator 2. It's just Predator in the concrete jungle, and it does a pretty good job at that. Predator 2 takes place in Los Angeles, 1997. And if there's one thing about me, I love late 90s LA as a sci-fi setting. Demolition Man, Predator 2, Strange Days, just give me those grimy, crime-filled streets and shove them straight into my veins like the goddamn dirtbag I am. Since it's LA 97, you got gangs fighting in the streets, a record heat wave, Montague and Capulet blowing up gas stations, and of course, there's a Predator doing Predator stuff. I really appreciate how Predator 2 wastes no time in having people's asses get predatored. The movie opens with Lieutenant Michael Harrigan, played by a phenomenal Danny Glover, arriving to a crime scene where there's a shootout between LAPD, the Colombian Scorpions, and the Jamaican Voodoo Posse. During the shootout, we get some solid gunplay, some fantastic practical explosions, and Danny Glover hanging out the side of the whip while he's driving it. There's some really solid stunt work just to start it off. After all this action, the Colombians retreat into their hideout, and that's when the Predator gets to business. Eventually, the cops manage to bust their way into the hideout, and they have no idea what they're looking at. Bodies are all over the place, it's a grimy mess, and they're like, I thought they were with each other, what happened? Harrigan gets to the rooftop and he sees one of the leaders of the Colombians just tweaking out of his mind because, like, his buddy's asses just got predatored. Dude pulls his guns to shoot at the Predator, but Harrigan thinks he's drawn on him and blasts old boy off the roof. Afterwards, Harrigan turns around and notices the Predator's camouflage, but he just chalks it up to his fear of heights and the record heat wave. Harrigan goes back to the office where, of course, his boss chews him out and introduces him to Detective Jerry Lambert, the newest member of his team. Shout out to Bill Paxton. you were a gem, and he is giving a predictably great performance in this, chewing all the scenery because he clearly knows what type of movie he's in. During the scene, we also introduced to Special Agent Keyes, Gary Busey's character, who is none too thrilled about Harrigan interrupting his investigation into the Colombian crime drama. So after we set up all these characters, we then cut to one of the Colombian drug lords smashing what I presume to be a Colombian baddie, when the Jamaican voodoo daddies bust through the door. Don't you hate when you're getting it in and Dr. Facilier just interrupts mid-stroke? Happens to the best of us. Of course, the Jamaicans aren't the only one here. The Predator pulls up and starts killing everyone, except for the naked, defenseless woman, further reinforcing the Predator code. Harrigan and his team eventually arrive at the scene, and it's effing gnarly. Could you imagine how bad this smells? Especially in a heat wave? To quote Pusha T, yeah! Before they can do any more investigating, Key shows up and tells them to shut the hell up, go home, and stop doing their goddamn jobs. His partner, Archuleta, is like, I know he ain't talking to me though, and returns to the crime scene later by himself and finds the tip of a Predator's spear. Unfortunately, the Predator was still chilling and absolutely wrecks Archuleta. Harrigan, obviously sad and angry that his partner was killed, vows to find whoever did this and gets a lead from one of the voodoo daddies about what's causing all this violence. This sequence really encapsulates what I love about Predator 2. First, the set dressing and atmosphere. It goes to show that no blue screen or volume can replicate strong, practical choices. Just the steam and all the trash. It just really cultivates a vibe. Second, there's a really clever kill here where you don't see the actual action. You just see like the zoom in to the voodoo daddy's face as he goes to battle the Predator, and then it zooms out and you just see his head being held by the Predator as a trophy. And third, this sequence, more than like any Predator movie in the series, really goes into like the rules and rituals of the Predator. After this, we go back to the Predator ship and we see the process of turning a skull into a trophy, and I gotta say, this is just grimy, and again, I'm happy I can't smell this movie because blood, sweat, and steam just does not seem like a good combination. Harrigan gets a lead that the Predator has been seen at a slaughterhouse, so he coordinates with his team to meet him there. Detective Cantrell and Lambert take the subway, and we get this great moment where the gangs are trying to start something, only for everyone on the subway to be equally strapped, resulting in a Mexican standoff that the two detectives have to mitigate. Before it can get on and poppin', the Predator shows up and just ruins everybody's day. Now, this sequence has gotten mixed reactions from all the people I've talked to about it. I know some don't enjoy it just because of the quick cuts and all the strobing lights kind of make it hard to figure out what's going on, but personally, I dig it. I think it's a stylish scene, and while it can be a bit much, the payoff is definitely worth it. So the Predator basically kills everybody, and Lambert and Cantrell are trying to get the civilians as far away as possible from the Predator. So Cantrell starts escorting them, and Lambert decides to stay back to hold the Predator off as best as he can. And while he's been an absolute ham this entire movie, Lambert does go out like a G, sacrificing himself to the Predator to give the people a chance to survive. So the train finally comes to a stop, and Cantrell tries to evacuate all the people off the train as fast as possible. She goes back to check on Lambert, but before she can get to him, the Predator grabs her and scans her with his infrared helmet. When he does, he sees that she's pregnant and spares her, further establishing the rules and rituals of the hunt. While Predator showcased how effective a killer the Predator is, and it did establish some of the rules, Predator 2 really does such a damn good job furthering the rules and rituals of the hunt. Like, it really gets into it in a way none of the other sequels, and even the first one, really does. So I think that's played in its favor, like, with all the weapons and some of the code. Like, a lot of that's been established in Predator 2. You know, Predator 2 has this, like, weird mixed reception, but in terms of contributing to the lore of the Predator, it's, like, low-key one of the most important in the series because it establishes a lot of the weapons, it establishes more of the code, like all the things that have become popular with the Predator through the comics and games and just various spin-offs. A lot of that was built in this movie, not the first one. Harrigan finally arrives just in time to see the Predator take off Lambert's head as a trophy. He tries to make chase before Keyes and his goons stop him, once again ruining everything. Keyes explains to Harrigan what the Predator is and that it's been seen at various war zones over the last few decades, most recently in 1987 in Central America. Hey, wait a minute, the first movie was in Central America in 1987, are you telling me? So after this explanation, Keyes' men go to the slaughterhouse and appropriately they get slaughtered. Having seen enough, Harrigan takes his gun and decides to go after the Predator himself. So, the finale is solid, but it doesn't quite reach the heights of its predecessor. I do appreciate the cat and mouse structure, but it is a bit saggy. The thing the first one has is tension, like it just keeps you on the edge of your seat. And this one doesn't quite replicate it. I mean, there's some action moments, like Keyes totally getting his shit wrecked, or Harrigan and the Predator hanging off the side of a building while he tries to detonate a bomb, and while this should feel tense, it just winds up feeling long. I don't know if it's necessarily the shot composition or the editing, but just that feeling of tension isn't quite there. I will say, though, I do love the bit where the Predator, after healing his wounds and all hopped up on Jolly Ranchers and Mountain Dew, just straight up busts through this old lady's apartment like a goddamn madman. It truly cracks me up every time. So eventually, Harrigan follows the Predator back to its ship, and after a brief fight, just kills the F out of it. More Predators show up, and at first Harrigan's like,
Type of nigga stand on business, nigga. One man arm against 50, nigga. What you wanna do that? I stand on business, nigga.
But instead of killing him, they simply gather their homie's body, pour one out, give Harrigan a trophy, and carry him off while bumping crossroads. Look, I wasn't alive in 1990, so I have no idea what the expectations and hype were for Predator 2 following Predator. I will say, though, this movie met mine. Predator 2 effectively expands the lore and mythology of the Predator, making it one of the greatest movie villains, and easily much more interesting than its alien counterpart, the Xenomorph. There's a real code and logic underpinning the Predator's killing, whereas the Xenomorph is just a bioweapon designed to kill any and everything in its path. The cast does a great job, the production design is phenomenal, and there's some solid stunt work throughout the film. I don't know why this movie was released on Thanksgiving, the same weekend as Dances with Wolves, no less. I feel like if this was released, like, in late summer, early fall, it probably would have performed better. If not critically, definitely commercially. Like, this is an October, August movie through and through. And since it's October, I think it's one really worth watching. Predator 2 is currently available to stream on Max, and I highly recommend watching it this spooky season. It's a grimy, violent, fun ride that I think you'll have a good time with. So with that, let's move on to Predators. In the 20 years between Predator 2 and Predators, the franchise more or less lay dormant. I mean, there were the AVP movies, but like, the first one is fine, and the sequel is so poorly lit and shot that it barely constitutes as a watchable movie. I try not to be super mean or necessarily negative about movies, but like Alien vs. Predator Requiem is a hard watch. Producer Robert Rodriguez always wanted to see a Predator sequel in the vein of Aliens and used his clout to make that movie. I'm not gonna lie, it was his name that mainly got me in the seat, more so than the Predator brand at the time. The summer Predators came out, I was working my college job at a movie theater, and I remember its opening weekend, a lot of people were coming in, and the more we were selling out, the more curious I was about it. So, that Saturday night, I decided to hit up my boy Troy and got some free tickets to go check out Predators, and I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised that the movie was a real blast. It wound up being one of my sleeper faves of 2010. I mean, the pacing's tight, the action delivers, and the setup is fun. Did everything I need in a Predator movie, quite frankly. Much like Predator 2, I really appreciate that Predators wasted no time getting right into it. The movie opens with Royce, Adrian Brody's character, waking up in the middle of freefall and desperately trying to open his chute. Eventually the chute opens, he's going through a bunch of jungle and trees, and then he slams the ground and BAM! Title card. I just feel like that opening, the movie really tells you, buckle up bitch, you're going for a ride. And I gotta tell you, it's a pretty pleasant ride. As soon as Royce gets to his feet, he gets into a standoff with Danny Trejo, who's also trying to figure out what the F is going on. Before they can come to a real conclusion, they start getting shot at by some dude with a Gatling gun. Royce quickly showcases his skills as a mercenary by tracking the fire and routing the shooter, getting the drop on him and causing him to stand down. They all ask each other what they were doing before they got here, and they have the same answer. They were in battle, they saw a blinding light, and then suddenly they were just free falling from the sky. As they continue to explore the jungle, we meet more folks, and the movie showcases what an absolutely stacked cast it has. We got Alice Braga as an IDF soldier, Walton Goggins as a convict, Topher Grace from Mahershala Ali. It's a pretty solid group! Even the lesser-known actors and Oleg Taktarov and Louis Ozawa Changchin are given some solid-ass performances and some really memorable moments. So after the gang gets all together, they start making their way for the jungle and come to two realizations. They're not on Earth, and they're being hunted. By what, you ask? Nigga, it's literally in the title. It's the Predators. Not just one, 3. Predators has a real simple setup that it manages to get a lot of mileage out of. One of my biggest disappointments is that we didn't get more of Adrian Brody as an action star because he really rises to the occasion here. While he doesn't have the brute physicality of Schwarzenegger, he's definitely jacked and he brings a believable sense of tactics and combat awareness to the character. The mix of personalities means everyone gets their own unique moment. Even Topher Grace's bitch ass gets a solid moment towards the end.
I'm the type of nigga stand on business, nigga. One man army.
Also gotta give a shout out to Lawrence Fishburne, whose reveal in the film is just really classic, like an 80s look who else is here moment. You can just tell he's having a ball playing a dude. He's not quite all the way there. So I'm in a movie club with my play cousin and a couple of our friends, and recently I picked Predator 2 as my pick because I knew I was going to be doing a video on it. Our buddy Sam made an interesting observation that it's kind of funny that in the first 2 Predator movies, the Predators go to Earth to do a hunt only to get their asses wrecked by some super cool dude. I think Predators actually answers that criticism in an interesting way of well, we keep going to their planet and getting our shit wrecked. What if we bring them to ours and see how that goes? I also think the setting adds an interesting wrinkle to the Predator mythology, because it's clear this is not their home planet. It's a game reserve. It's an area specifically meant for hunting, which implies that the Predators have a presence on multiple planets, which I find is interesting because they know where Earth is, they technologically outpace us, and yet they don't try to invade. They just really like throwing intergalactic hands. While not as lore heavy as Predator 2, it does make some small and interesting additions, particularly hinting at different tribes of predators having beef with one another. This is really only carried through in the 3rd act, but it's a nice little wrinkle to the Predator mythology. From a filmmaking standpoint, director Nimrod Intal does a great job capturing the action. Given that this was made during peak shaky cam, it actually was a pleasant surprise that the action was generally coherent across the board. You constantly have spatial awareness of who's doing what where, and you generally can follow the action beat by beat. The editing isn't too choppy, and while the shot composition isn't breathtaking, it certainly does its job. The designs of the Predator are great, and I think a lot of the practical effects work. One thing I really do like across Predator, Predator 2, Predators, and Prey is that each Predator has its own unique personality and armor set. It never feels like you're watching the same Predator, and it truly does establish that this is a species with different tribes, types, and sizes. Yeah, I think I just really like the Predator movies, more so than I thought. I just really get down with the world building and mythology here. So overall, while Predators isn't necessarily a banger on the same level as Aliens, I certainly think it's an entertaining and respectable entry in the franchise. It's one that really hasn't gotten the love I think it deserves over these last 13 years. It seems to be more of a forgotten entry in the franchise, which is a shame because it's a really, really strong action movie. Sadly, Predators isn't available on any streaming service as of this recording. I wound up watching it through my 13-year-old Blu-ray copy. But it's available to rent or own on any digital platform, and I'm sure you could go to a used movie store and buy a copy for cheap. I definitely think it's worth watching. So, with that, I'm Joe, and you just experienced wonder.